Good evening. I know we still have a few people just coming in. I want to make sure that our video and audio are all set. Got my thumbs up. Thank you. All right, good evening. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I am Nicole Russell. I am your school board chair representing the town of Sabattis as part of the RSU4 district. We will go ahead and get started with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Tonight we would also like to take a moment to remember one of our student athletes that have passed away within the past week. Isaac, better known as Iggy Graham, was a friend, brother, son, and a teammate to many of our Raider athletes. Iggy participated in football, basketball, and lacrosse. He will be remembered for his energy and spirit on and off the athletic fields. At this time, we would like to take a moment of silence for our teammate and friend, Iggy. Thank you. Okay, on to the purpose of tonight's meeting. So we are here and we invite you to obtain your participation in the development of the RSU4 school budget that is being recommended and proposed to you for the 25-26 school year. And now we will go into the introduction of the board of directors. I'm going to start on the other end. We have Matt Early for Wales. Christy. Did that just die on me or? Okay, maybe I moved it too far away. It did click out, huh? Okay. Christy Olette from Litchfield. Doug Bumpus from Litchfield. Teresa Medor from Litchfield. Nancy Provost from Sabattis. Robbie Gayton from Sabattis. Diane Whalen from Sabattis. And as I said, myself, Nicole Russell, Sabattis. All right, now I will turn this over to Katie.
So welcome everyone, and I am Katie Gronin, the superintendent for RSU4. And so we are going to be electing a moderator. Do I have a nomination? Yes, Robbie. Randall Greenwood has been nominated. Is there a second? Gary, second. Thank you. Is there any other nominations? Okay. If not, I will close the nomination. And we need at least 3 members. Sharon is right, 3 members of the audience to vote for hopefully Randy. I see 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Ballot box is closed. Will you count, please, for Sharon? Okay, so Randy will come forward and be sworn in as tonight's moderator. And he is coming from Augusta, so he hasn't had much time for a breather. we won't tell anyone. Okay, so I, Randall Greenwood, do swear that I will faithfully discharge, to the best of my ability, the duties incumbent on me as moderator of this annual budget meeting, according to the Constitution and laws of the state, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that of this state,
and that of this state,
so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof.
so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God. Good evening, and thank you all for being here tonight. If I could get the clerks to come forward to be sworn in as ballot clerks for tonight. Bear with me just for a second. I'm waiting for a document. All right. Before we begin, I just wanted to note that we'll be using the Maine Moderator's Manual, A Guide to Town Meeting, Rules of Procedure, last updated in 2021, as our guide. Hearing no objection, it's so ordered. I will recognize Nicole Russell for the purpose of making a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I make a motion to seek permission to allow non-resident administrators to speak. Katie Grondin, Samantha Garnett Sias, Norma Jean Audette, Marco Aliberti, Jenny Hudner, Jan LaValle, Michaela Stevens, Justin Kelleher, Sheena Jordan, and Jim Palmer.
Is there a second?
Mark Taylor's not here this evening.
Is there a second? It's been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards or paddles. Those opposed, that motion carries. Are you going to be doing an overview at the beginning? Okay, so I'll introduce Katie Grondin for a brief overview.
Okay, so thank you, and I want to say this is my last budget meeting, public budget meeting, as I get ready to retire. But I thought this would be a great opportunity for you all to meet the new superintendent who will start on July 1, which is Marco Aliberti. So give him a hand, Marco. Yeah, and he's currently the high school principal, and we've been interviewing for his replacement as well for the high school. So that information will be coming out. But I want to make sure you saw his face so you knew who he was. So starting with, I don't know where to stand, I want to make sure you see the screen. I thought it was really important from our perspective as a board, as a district, that yes, right now you have different voting paddles. You represent 3 different towns. In our mindset, though, we educate the students of your 3 towns. So when we walk in your school, the schools, and kids are talking, they don't say, oh, you're a Litchfield student. Oh, well, I'm a Wales student. Well, oh, I'm a Sabata student. What they are is they're all friends, connections. They go to rec departments together. They go to birthday parties together. They do their learning together. They don't see the 3 towns. They see their school district and the wonderful schools that they attend. And I think that's just really important that, yes, we're 3 towns. We contribute tax dollars to 1 district. And I just think that's really important to remember, that we are 1 district. So I'm often asked, why should we support the budget? And so if you haven't noticed, on our website, we do good news slides regularly. And so I put some of those, I took slides from every school because a lot of you don't go in the classrooms, you haven't been in the classrooms. So it's hard to say, well, why am I supporting this budget? I don't even know what's going on in the schools. So what I did is I put a bunch of the slides together. It's about 4 minutes long. And I want you to see what we're so proud of in our schools and to see the learning going on and the things that we celebrate all year long so that you can say to yourself, wow, I did get to see a glimpse into those classrooms and why would I support the budget? So we really thought that was important, and so we're going to play that slideshow now. And just technology, we're verifying ourselves. Here we go. Hold on. We had it set. I think that's the end, right? Yeah, okay. So I hope you got a little glimpse into seeing what goes on at all our schools. These slides are all on our website with many, 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 many more. So if you're interested in seeing what we're doing, it's on our website, right in the front, and it's also on our Facebook page. Because we do think it's important that you know what's going on in our classrooms and in our schools. Next slide. So the budget process this year started in November when the school board made their goals around what they wanted to see in this year's budget. And it was from class sizes to remaining reasonable, to looking at ways to support student with curriculum. And obviously most important was to bring a budget forward that serviced our students, programmed and educated them, supporting our staff and all that they need, and all the other parts, which you have our budget booklet, and you're going to be voting on all those parts of the budget that make up our school department. And so it was our job, Samantha and I, as the business manager, we worked hard with our directors and principals, and they worked hard with the staff to say, what do you need? What do you need to educate our students? And so there's a whole process that goes on behind the scenes. And teachers, we talk out, what do you need? This isn't a wish list of everything, because we do want to be fiscally responsible. That is our main goal, is to meet the needs and be fiscally responsible, and that's the board's goal throughout the process. So we began that. Our first meeting was in February, and I think we met every single week, it felt like. But we went line by line with the board, telling them what are those important parts that went up, why did they go up, why did things go down, what were those needs identified for each of the articles you'll be voting on. You're going to see more information as those articles come forward. So when we went to the board with the superintendent recommended budget, because that's the first stage, we kept running all the way through the budget process if Sabattis primary was open and if Sabattis primary was closed. So that decision was not made until later in the process as to whether Sabattis primary would close. So as we worked through the process and discussed those savings that we are going to need to do to bring down this budget, the Sabattis primary closure was on the table from the consolidation committee. So we had a consolidation committee that discussed Libby Tozier School and Sabattis primary. And obviously the decision at first was we got to close both buildings, but that wouldn't be feasible as the first step. The first step would be to close one building. We discussed a lot about which building it would be, and it was Sabattis Primary School. So the budget that we landed on with the superintendent's proposed budget was $23,477,569.54, which was a 3.71% increase over last year's budget, and that was with Sabattis Primary closing. The board then debated that and really sent us back to say, we need you to get closer to 3%. Can you go back through? We also didn't know at that time our health insurance. So we go through MEA Trust, and we were waiting for our amount. We had already been told we'd probably be at the top of the band because of our health mod. So they look at how healthy our district is, and then they take all the districts and they create a band from the least increase to the highest increase. So we had planned for the highest increase at 15%. And so when we went back to try to get close to that 3%, we had learned where we landed. So we were able to bring down health costs. We looked at teacher tuition and brought that down. So we reimburse our staff for when they take professional courses. That is part of their benefits, and so we reduced that. We reduced, oh, see, and I had them at the top of my head earlier. The what? Oh, yeah, technology. We went through technology again. The director of technology went through everything again to say, is there anywhere we can make an adjustment to bring those costs down? So we also did that. So we did a lot of thinking, and we brought the budget in at $23,310,071 at a 2.97% increase over last year. So the board approved that budget amount for you for consideration tonight. And you look at each article and you'll understand why we're asking for what we're asking. And then we hope that you will support the school board's approved budget. So the biggest drivers, we employ close to 250 folks. So we're a large business in this region. We have a lot of staff that we employ to support our students, and you'll see that in each of the articles, from our teachers, our ed techs, bus drivers, to custodians, to kitchen staff, to administrators, to our teachers. So all those people are needed to make sure our students are safe and well cared for and educated. So obviously the two biggest drivers are salaries, and that was the increase for salaries this year, was $253,572.28. And then the health benefits, remember I told you we budgeted 15% at first, and then when our amount came in, we were able to bring it to 14.25% increase. So you can see that's a huge impact on the budget. We work all the time on wellness, sending out wellness information, having give feedback to staff about using, for example, don't go to the emergency room if you don't have to, go to urgent care, those type of things. Do your proactive check-ins so that we can keep you healthy. Do walking, and she's here, Jessica, wave. Jessica's up and stand. She's our wellness coordinator. So she works to get information out all the time to try to make our district healthier with our employees. So that was a $582,306.83 increase. We also had a lot of discussion on the school resource officer position. And so we wanted to highlight it here that Sabattis had been able to provide the district with a school resource officer due to everybody with hiring and making sure that every spot is covered, that the police department was not able to provide us with a school resource officer this year. So we had a long debate about, what are we going to do? And so we know that we can contract with Androscoggin County, and the board will be looking at going into a contract with the Androscoggin Sheriff at their next board meeting to get the MOU going so they can hire someone so that we have somebody on board. We budgeted $70,000. That's an increase of $72,000. Because the difference is, when we were with Sabattis, we only contracted for the school year, okay? And when you go to Androscoggin Sheriff or Kennebec County, it's a full year position. So that person, like Sabattis, we felt bad for the SRO. When they were down an officer, they'd pull the SRO to cover. This would be an officer solely devoted to RSU 4. And it would be July 1 to June 30th, and we would get retro pay if they were not hired and did not start until September 1st. But they provide summer programming to support students, and they also take their vacation during the summer so that they are with us during the school year. And then we had special ed costs, that this is money that we have to invest in when our students are attending out-of-district programs, and we have 20 slots budgeted for students that may not be able to be educated in our special ed programs. And so there's a variety of programs our students attend, for example, Spurwink, Margaret Murphy. So those places, they provide occupational therapy, speech, physical therapy, and when they do that, there's a portion that the school department needs to pay towards. And we have to abide by that. It's a requirement, and we have to budget accordingly to pay our fair share so that the Medicare, we get a reimbursement. Okay, so you'll see in your budget booklet, when you look at revenue, that is also a revenue source for us when we bill as well. Okay, because we can bill as a district as also. So those are really the big drivers. If you totaled that up, our budget is up about $600,000. That exceeds that. And that's not even the drivers that, are other things like insurance going up for our transportation or our electricity, things like that. So when we looked at how are we going to bring taxes down, how are we going to help this, all right, we went up 2.79%, which is, we think, really reasonable in this climate. And so some of that help to have it be at 2.79% is the closing of Sabatis Primary, which saved the district $413,930. And then we had a debt, and you'll see that in Article 10 is now gone, for the Oak Hill Middle School project, and that was $433,656. So that came off the books. This was reduced to get us to where we are this evening. So that's kind of the big picture, and then we're going to get, Randy's going to take you through each article, and there'll be information on those slides prior to your voting.
All right, thank you, Superintendent, for the overview. Just a couple of housekeeping items, how this process works. If you've never been to a open town meeting, I will read the article. I will recognize somebody for a motion. I will ask for a second. And then at that point, we'll have discussion. And that discussion may be short, may be long, but it's a discussion. If for some reason you don't like what was proposed, you could offer an amendment. If that was seconded, that would then be the discussion point. If you're not happy with that, you could also do an amendment to the amendment, and that's where I'm going to stop, just so that we don't get too far delayed, and because we still have to bring ourselves back to the main motion. So I'll guide you through the process. Does anybody have any questions before we begin? Yes, sir. Is it in regards to the budget or the presentation that you just heard? All right. The member may proceed. Direct your comments to the moderator. Can you clarify the question? I don't understand the question. All right, the member has posed a question to any administrator who may be able to answer or wish to answer.
I think also would be helpful for us is a person who's asking a question could go to the microphone. I think for our audience, I see Jay standing up, but I did hear you, Gary.
Yeah,
I just
think we heard the question.
Yeah, for further. If you would like to visit the school, you certainly can make an arrangement. We have school policy around visitors. And so if there's a school you would like to visit, you can touch base with the principal and we can follow the policy around having you visit a classroom.
Thank you. What is your policy?
I think that, Gary, you can be in contact with me.
What is the policy,
All right.
Mr. Moderator?
I don't know the policy. I heard the question, I heard the answer. I guess I would ask if we direct that question to the individual building or to the board at a regular school board meeting, not a budget meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Article 1, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for regular instruction. The school board recommends $8,079,012. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Bob English, Town of Wales. History repeats itself. So 29 years ago, I was asked to run on the Wales School Board because I brought up some things that the Wales School Department, Wales School Board was doing, which I term smoke and mirrors. and that kind of hung with me for a while. So it's happening again. It's the same scenario. I think while we are going to vote on each article independently, it behooves us to look, and during each article, to look at the full picture. And that full picture is not really laid out, I believe, appropriately in the book. So every cost center is showing an increase. This one is over a 7% increase for this particular cost center. Others are 8, almost 9, 10%, 5, 4, 7%. So there's a lot of increases in all those. And then debt service, we show a $433,000 decrease. The fact of the matter is we as a RSU never paid that $433,000. That was 100% funded by the state. So it's not an amount that we had to raise. So to take it out of the expense, it's great to have it in the expense to justify the revenue that's coming from the state, but the revenue is not coming from the state. So to leave it as if it's actually a reduction in the expenses is disingenuous at best. Additionally, facilities and maintenance, we're showing a 3.81% decrease. But if you look at Article 18, they want to add $150,000 for maintenance and capital items, which are items that are individually over $5,000, all to be expended during this fiscal year. So that's the maintenance. They just took it out of this line and moved it to a capital reserve account in order to show the facilities line going down and to show that number in the budget as being lower. So I believe that looking at the expenses that we had last year compared to this year that were paid for by the RSU, that we actually have a budget that is 5.66%. And that's taking all of the articles or all the cost centers, excluding debt service, and then adding in that $150,000 that should be in the maintenance line, but I believe was moved there to go and make the budget fall under. That makes up almost that $177,000 that the school board deducted from the superintendent's proposal. So those numbers, I'm showing it's a 5.66% increase in the budget for the amounts that we in the RSU are going to have to raise. So I want to bring that out. I don't have an amendment to this amount. I know I sat up there for many years and when people would come up and give a number different or just cut the number at the bottom and then tell the board to make it up. So I'm over here. I wasn't privy to the discussions, and I believe that they've already had some discussion on what that $150,000 is going to be spent for because of the way the article is written. So as we go along, we need to keep that in mind. So the increases that they're showing individually might be correct, but in total, the way it's laid out is misleading. Thank you.
All right, I'll just remind people that if I do take general comments, they're of course, that's a discussion, but try to keep them to the cost center that we're talking about. The text of what was just read might come under the additional local section as more of a broad discussion, but I would please try to keep your comments to the cost center that we're working in as we go. Any further discussion on Article 1, regular instruction? Yes.
Hi, Christine Garrett, Sabatis. Mr. English, I just have to...
Please direct your comments to the chair.
Very good. I have to address the previous speaker's first contention. I didn't get, obviously there's a lot of numbers in there, but the first contention that debt services should not be counted as a expense, that's not how accounting works. So I just want everyone to know that that is how you have to do it. In accounting, revenue and expenses are not directly tied. And so breaking things down becomes difficult. And I just want everyone to be aware of that accounting works in a certain way, and the school board has to use generally approved accounting principles. So that's it.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion regarding regular instruction? All right, the motion on the floor was $8,079,012. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 2, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for special education. School board recommends $5,425,448. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Please come to the microphone. If you could just state your name as you begin speaking. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask that in the beginning.
My name's Tom Wood. Close enough to the mic? Nope. How about now? Thank you. Tom Wood from Litchfield. Special education goes up this time about 10%, and it's been going up at a regular basis. And so much has been spoken about why. Now about 30% of our students are identified as special needs. And so the question is that trend increasing, leveling off, and decreasing? Much was blamed on the COVID crisis. And so this is one point in time. The question is next year, is it going to go up another 10% and then another 10%? Or are we looking at an exponential curve or a straight line? So it's hard to tell, for me anyway, what context this new request for $5 million for and change is.
All right, thank you for the question. Anybody care to answer?
So yes, special education is, something that, and our director is here, so he, yeah, I see him. This is one that we discuss all the time, and there's certain regulations around how you identify students. And what we have found is where we used to be able to perhaps have one teacher doing a couple of different and I see a special ed teacher too here. We have needs in our district where having two programs combined is not working effectively. And so untangling those programs so that we can better address the special ed needs so that they are making that kind of progress is what we're working very hard on. This is a challenging, obviously, it's paying for our staff that service our special education students. It's also paying for our out-of-district. And these are all decisions made through an IEP meeting, an individual educational programming meeting. And our director sits in a lot of those most of those meetings with administrators, parents, teachers to make the best programming to support our students. And then we have contracted services. And so we have things that we're obligated to pay. So we're always looking at how to bring our students back in those out-of-district programming. We talk a lot about identification, what's going on in the general ed classroom for support, working on our programming in the regular ed classroom to make sure that teachers have those skills set to address their needs, but many students do need support. And so obviously this is an area that we have been discussing on how we can bring those numbers down. So we understand that this is one of those categories that we are obligated to meet a student's needs.
All right, I think there might be a follow-up.
Excuse me. Again, Tom Wood from Litchfield. The question was more about the trend line. The feds, under this new administration, seems to have different ideas about education and how to support it at the federal level. We have all schools face federal regulation and standards that have to be met. I understand and I trust that the school board and the schools are doing what they can. My question is, are we going to fall off a cliff if federal funds disappear from the feds to the state to us? And or is this increase in the population of special ed needs on the increase? We have 30% this year, we're going to have 40% next year, we're going to have 50% of our students with special needs in 5 years. How does this benchmark fit the trend line?
Superintendent?
So I would say it's pretty even in the amount of special ed students we've had. So it's pretty even in the identification, and the regulations are federal regulations, and you are correct. We're watching all of that as well, and it's called the IDEA, and it would take an act of Congress to undo a lot of those regulations. We're hoping they will continue to support our special ed students. And so, yes, we have to prepare for what may be, but at the same time, we have to, every student's educational program has to be upheld by the federal laws. But right now, we're pretty steady in our population. What changes is how much we have to pay for like Medicare reimbursement. Those are out of our control. A lot of it, some of it is out of our control, right? So when they have increases for tuition, the state decides those come from those private purpose schools, and they tell us how much that tuition is going to be, and we have to budget accordingly. Same with the main care increases, we have to budget accordingly. So it's very hard in this cost center to reduce it with the risk that we're not going to meet the federal requirements and the state requirements. So we believe every year we're looking at how is our programming, how we can support that.
Thank you. Any further questions on special education? All right, seeing none, the motion on the floor was for special education in the amount of $5,425,448. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 3, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for career and technical education. The school board recommends $8,218. Motion, please. It has been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Mike Bollier from Litchfield. Why was it 0 this year and we need $8,000 next year?
Yeah, so I was going to speak to it because I knew that would probably come up. So this is the first time we're contributing to Lewiston Regional Technical Center. So what has always happened is Lewiston School Department counts the numbers of students that they receive from the districts. And they've made up the difference often for all of us through their additional local. So of course, as you know, if you've been watching everyone's budgets, we had big discussions at our Lewiston Regional Technical Center meetings about a cost sharing model. And so we're looking at our enrollments and our number of slots that are assigned to each of our schools. So this year, the Lewiston School Department ran their budget, they looked at the additional, and then they assigned us a certain percentage. And so we are similar to the other small districts like Lisbon and so forth in our amounts, where Auburn and Lewiston pay more because of their size and their number of slots. And so this, really, we have 86 students participate, which is amazing, and it's more than we're allocated. So we kind of make out, really, is that we're paying for a certain number of slots, but we access more because we have a great guidance department that whenever there's a slot open, like if another school department slot isn't taken, we jump right on it. We're like, okay, well, we have a student that would love it, so we're going to put them in. So this is kind of going to, every year, yes, they're going to calculate our amount that we are going to contribute towards the programming. So we're getting a really, to me, a great deal in the programming that's being offered to our students for $8,218.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, I think so.
Any further
Yeah,
questions or
around- yes,
discussion
yeah.
on career and technical education?
Laura Clifford from Sabatis. I just had a question on how many slots were allocated and how many we have on a waiting list.
All right.
I know the direct, do you have, I'd have to look up how many. I think we're allocated probably close to, I'm going to say 60-ish, 60 slots. I think we have a handful of students on a wait list, yes. I don't know the exact number, Laura, but we exceed the number of slots that were allocated.
And so I'm not looking to change the number this
Yeah,
year.
I know.
But also just consideration maybe for the board for the following year is if we are meeting the needs of those students that are on that list, it would be my kind of thought if maybe that needs to be different for next year. And then also, would you know how many kids, I know that taking kids that are not residents of Litchfield, Sabatis, or Wales, how many of those kids are maybe resident kids are waiting for a placement, and out of district kids, I know they still are considered all of our kids, but maybe if our district kids are waiting for a slot because
You're talking about
Monmouth kids
superintendent
have it.
agreements, Laura?
well, I'm talking about LRTC specifically.
Nobody, okay.
If there's
this
kids on a waiting list
Right.
that are a resident.
Yeah.
And like a Monmouth kid gets a spot, but a Litchfield or Sabatis kid is waiting on a waiting list.
So you're talking about students that are with us that are on a superintendent's agreement.
Sure.
Okay, that would be a good example. So we receive funding for students that are on a superintendent's agreement.
So specific to an LRTC wait list, though, is what I'm saying.
Right, I don't
Yeah.
have the number of students that
Thank you.
are under superintendent's agreement attending LRTC.
Thank you.
But you can call me or email me and I can see if I can get that.
All right, that might be a question that might be part of next year's budget discussion.
There you go.
There you go. Any further discussion on career and technical education? All right, the motion on the floor is $8,218. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 4, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for other instruction. The school board recommends $598,508. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Bob English, Wales. So this is a 10.56% increase from year to year. It's a huge increase. Sometimes I think we spend more on athletics than we do on curriculum. That it seems that because parents get really involved in their students who play sports, and so they push it, but we have a lot of after-school groups that run a lot of things that starve for cash and have to rely on fundraisers or not having as great attendance. So I'm not going to offer another number, but I think a 10% increase for co-curricular programs and extracurricular programs is pretty steep. And I don't know the need for the summer and vacations. Well, that summer and vacation school has been rolled into other instruction. So, you know, just a thought. It's a lot. I remember last year on the board, we had several board members that were pushing for no more than $100,000, which would have been eaten up in this article right here. But another amount passed. So this year, they seem to support much more. So just a thought. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or discussion?
Sorry, Laura, again, I haven't caught up with the meetings this year. Just a question: if is this where middle school girls field hockey would be in?
All right, the question is about middle school girls field hockey.
Yes, this would have been where the article it would have shown up.
And is it not in the article?
Correct.
So we had over 100 residents in 2 days support a petition that was presented to the board. Can you explain what happened with that? To support
yeah,
girls
so
field hockey at the middle school. Sorry.
It was the total cost was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think $20,000 to bring it in. And when Brian Daniels talked about with the rec department, we felt as a board that the rec department could continue to support the program. So when we looked at what would have to be done with the fields, things like that, the board decided not to add it.
All right. Again, it's my job to guide. If it's your intent to add a number, do something, that this would be the time to do it.
I'll do a correction. It was 10,000, Laura. I want to make sure I have the correct number.
Thank you, because I was very surprised with that, because the field hockey currently uses the soccer fields and fields at the middle school anyway, so that was not. So I would propose maybe a little bit more conversation is that I did a petition with all 3 towns with residents that in just 2 days, over 100 signatures, and presented that to the board. So I would make an amendment to adjust that to, $608,508 to support the petition that was presented to the Board of Selectmen for an addition of middle school field hockey, girls middle school field hockey sports for that.
Is there a second? It's been seconded. I just want to clarify that we're only doing a dollar number, and it can't specifically be tied to a program.
Sure.
That would be a policy decision of the board, but it is your intent to add 10,000, so your motion was for 608,508.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded as an amendment. Any discussion on that?
So I will continue. Is that it? No, maybe I'll let that go. Sports are very important for our kids.
All right. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion on the amended amount?
Thank you. My name is Mary Jane Blanchard. I'm over in Litchfield. I just wanted to make sure that the appropriated monies were equal for both girls' sports and boys' sports, because boys are boys and girls are girls, and I want to make sure that they're getting equal funding
Right.
across
I mean,
the board.
I think I would direct, just trying to moderate the meeting. I think that's a policy decision that is not here at this meeting. This is a budget meeting. The policy decision would come at a regular school board meeting, but duly noted. Thank you.
Do you mind if I follow up to that for a minute? So I started with one petition, and I do know that the boys football team is kind of interested as well. I personally didn't have time to do another one yet, but I know that there's a few people interested in that, as well as volleyball and Mr. Palmer girls lacrosse coming next year at the high school, but we'll talk more about that maybe later. But I do know there's other groups that are interested in getting additions, and there's also other costs with those. So, you know, that number could be 700,000 or something, but I'm sure people would take some volunteers for it, but I could only do one at a time.
All right, any further discussion on the amended amount for other instruction? All right, seeing none, the amended amount that we'll be voting on first is $608,508. If it passes, it then becomes the main motion. If it fails, we'll revert back to the other number that was previously proposed. All those in favor of the amended amount, $608,508, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? All right, I counted 11 in the affirmative, 16 in the negative. The amendment fails. So we'll revert back to the motion on the floor, $598,508. Any further discussion?
Mike Bowyer, Litchfield. I'd like to propose an amendment of $541,360.67.
Can you repeat that number? 541?
$541,360.67.
All right, is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, the amendment on the floor is an amount of $541,360.67. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That amendment fails. We'll revert back to the main motion, $598,508. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 5, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for student and staff support. The school board recommends $2,596,791. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
What is this? What staff and student support does $2.5 million buy us?
All right. The member has posed a question. Somebody from the administration or the school board here to answer.
So as you can read through that, support services really include guidance, the health services, improving instruction, so curriculum and professional development, our library and instructional technology. And so you can see the positions there. We have 4 school counselors, 4 social workers, a director of guidance, a guidance administrative assistant, a librarian, 2 ed tech, 3 for our libraries, 4 nurses, technology director, 3 technicians to oversee our technology, a data specialist, and then part of the director of curriculum and instruction. And then we have our tuition reimbursement, supplies and equipment, software, hardware, and our professional services. That's all included.
Follow up?
Yes, please. Is there been a position or a body increase in this, or is that just simply maintaining what we have right now?
It's maintaining, and then this was a rigorous discussion around technology and reviewing all our programming, all our software to make sure that we're being as responsive to, if we're not using it, we're not going to keep it, and how can we still have a rigorous program for our students.
All right. Any further questions on student and staff support? Yes.
Hi, Andrew Beaupre, Litchfield. Andrew Beaupre, Litchfield. Question, we have a whole school district with 1 librarian and 2 library techs for 4 buildings?
We're required by law to have 1 certified librarian, which is housed here at the high school, and they oversee the Ed Tech 3s that run the middle school library, and then we have an Ed Tech 3 that's shared between Libby Tozier and Carrie Ricker.
So our elementary school students only have access to a library Ed Tech 3 half-time. Each elementary school has them half-time.
Well, it's like the art, music, and PE teacher, those specialists, they're included in the coverage of those 2 elementary buildings.
Thank you.
Any further questions on student and staff support? The motion on the floor was $2,596,791. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 6, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for system administration. The school board recommends $801,197. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? Seconded. Any questions or discussion? Yes, sir. Can you come to the microphone? I'm just trying to make it so that everybody can hear.
I would amend the motion to read. I would amend the motion to read $744,458.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we will move on. We'll start with the amendment. The amended amount was, once again, $744,458. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? Counted 10 in the affirmative, 19 in the negative. The amendment fails. We'll get back to the main motion was $801,197. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 7. To see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for for school administration. The school board recommends $1,151,991. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Jen Waterman Sabatis. I am just curious as to where our Dean of Students at the middle school falls under, if that is under teacher contract or under this.
It's Article 1.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any further questions on school administration? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 8, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for transportation and buses. The school board recommends $1,424,412. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
So I see what up there. I know what's covered. So during the discussion of closure of the Sabatis Elementary School, the dollars that were being saved, a large number of them was going to be in transportation. But it doesn't look like we saved much in transportation because we got over a 5% increase in the transportation line. I pay gas in my car, and I noticed that the price for gas this year isn't that much different than it was last year. So it hasn't gone up, 5 to 10%, and we should have less miles. So can you justify the increase in transportation knowing that that was a cost savings in closing of the school?
All right, the members posed a question. Anybody who is able to answer?
So we did discuss this as a board. It wasn't a significant saving because we still need to run all our buses, obviously, and we still need to transport. One of the biggest drivers around transportation will be the amount of time students are on the bus, for sure. But the increases obviously are salary and benefits, similar to the other cost centers. We also have repair and maintenance costs, looking at how much it's costing to do repair and maintenance, and we are working to try to bring that number down for next year's budget around how can we better do save with repair and maintenance, because right now we have to bring our buses to a place to be maintained. That comes with a price tag, so we have been investigating that. So we had an increase in our insurance, obviously our insurance for our buses, that was an increase.
Any further questions? Can you please come to the microphone?
Thank you again, Mary Jane from Litchfield. I just wanted to present, I know it's probably late in the game and I don't want to take up too much time. A lot of students get the opportunity to be taken to school by their parents, which is great. We want our kids to be educated and have safe passage. I'd like to present something in the future that we do a more pay-as-you-go. I've done this program at another school, and it worked out quite well. It helped the taxpayers, and it got the kids to school safely, and people made the decision. I want to take my kid to school. I don't want to pay for the bus. Excuse me. Other people said, no, I need the bus. And it went by, you signed up by quarter, and you decided, well, hey, I have a job change or I don't. And if it worked out for parents to take their kids to school, they didn't have to pay for the school bus. And also, so it relieves a lot of people, and it's an option. So something to think about. I know we'll probably, hopefully address this in the future.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or discussion? All right, recapping, the motion on the floor was for transportation and buses in the amount of $1,424,412. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 9, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for facilities maintenance. The school board recommends $3,224,494. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Mr. English first, and then just make your way to the microphone. Thank you.
I would like an explanation on why the $150,000 in Article 18 wasn't included in maintenance. The article clearly states it's going to be used for maintenance and capital purchases, which are items costing $5,000 or more individually. I think those costs should have been included in this instead of asking for a reserve fund that you're going to expend entirely in one fiscal year using fund balance that you don't even have yet because your books haven't been audited. So you hope you have it. So can I get an explanation on why you didn't include it in here other than to keep the numbers looking lower? Thank you.
Mr. English has posed a question to anybody who may be able to answer.
This was a lot of discussion at the board level around, and you'll see the article regarding capital improvement. And so the savings in this article is mostly due to the closing of Sabattis Primary. That's where the savings is, where that is. So it isn't counting on fund balance, it's using current fund balance that are on the books. And so it's reallocating so that we didn't put it in the budget to raise the expenditures so that there would be a higher increase overall to the budget for expenditures. And then we discussed whether we would offset it with a higher use of fund balance. So right now, when I say some fund balance, that's all that, what's really hard, and we talk about this board, we put a budget together with our best information that we have. And then we live our budget, right? And so when we live our budget, whether we don't fill a position or savings in a contract, we have at the end of the year those dollars. And those dollars are called fund balance, and they're not designated. They're undesignated. So they sit until they're designated. So you will see, like in your budget, oh my mic is a different one? Okay. Try this one. So you will see in the budget booklet the use of fund balance, and we're using $550,000 to offset taxes. And so instead of raising that to using $700,000 of fund balance and then adding $150,000 to this article, that would make a fear of, will we have that $700,000 or that $550,000 the following year to keep taxes down? So you have to monitor that. By state law, which there is a bill going through right now, well, we anticipate will go through, is allowing school departments to carry 9% of that fund balance. And so we do get, there are rules on how much you can have in your fund balance, and many districts, matter of fact, I was in superintendent's group this morning, have these capital improvement, they have instructional reserve accounts. And so that's why the board discussed this, was it's very important to start planning, because that's what we always hear. You don't sound like you're planning for what needs to be done. Instead, you try to raise the budget, and then we come to budget meeting, and that is the article that gets reduced, and then we're making up for that reduction. So we're trying to show and be transparent in what we were using those dollars for.
All right, I think Mr. Parker had a question.
I am extremely concerned that it appears that through history, we have managed to pick out facilities and maintenance of our buildings is extremely important. And it appears to me that that's the first place that we cut the budget. I am extremely conservative, and most of you know that. But you don't want to be stupid conservative. And I would make a motion to amend the number to read $3,352,332. Thank you.
Is there a second? It has been seconded. All right, so we have an amendment on the floor that would make that number, the amendment is for $3,352,332. Any discussion? Yes.
Josh O'Neill, Litchfield. At the top of the meeting this evening, you mentioned wanting to close both Sabattis Primary and Libby Tozier. Were there any significant line items for Libby Tozier's school building that are not included in the budget?
Yeah, you're going to see that later when we get to the article about the capital improvement. We go over what the needs are and how we're looking for funding sources to pay for those. So those are coming up. Yes.
All right, any further questions or discussion on the amendment? All right, just recap the amendment for Article 9 on facilities maintenance is for $3,352,332. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? It was 15 in the affirmative, 12 in the negative. The amendment passes and now becomes a main motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Once again, the main motion is for $3,352,332 for facilities maintenance. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 10, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for debt service and other commitments. The school board recommends $0. Motion, please. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 11, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for all other expenditures. The school board recommends $0. Motion, please. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 12, to see what sum the RSU will appropriate for the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, and to see what sum the RSU will raise and assess as each municipality's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act in accordance with Maine Revised Statutes Title 20A, Section 15688. Total appropriated by municipality. Town of Litchfield, $6,251,975.94. Total raised by the Town of Litchfield, $3,022,753.33. Total appropriation for the Town of Sabattis, $8,693,618.69. Total raised by the Town of Sabattis, $2,680,340. Total appropriation for Wales, $3,087,217.43. Total raised by Wales, $983,015. The sum of the above, total appropriation was $18,032,812.06. And the total raised by the towns of Litchfield, Sabattis, and Wales is $6,686,108.33. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
I'd like to amend the amount to $1,759,915. Excuse me, 17,599,156. That's a reduction of a little over 400,000, which is what you stuck in as a negative, which we didn't even pay for last year. It was just something that was passed through to make the reduction look right. 3 years, this is the third year in a row where you've asked for a little over $1 million, and then we got to go all the way to November before something passes. I'd like to see this passed the first time at town meetings. That's why I'm looking for a reduction here. That'll actually reduce the total amount. Thank you.
I reluctantly will ask, is there a second? It has been seconded.
Want me to explain?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is this is the state dollars. Okay. So the state calculations calculate RSU4 at $18,032,812,000. And then the local required, in order for the district to receive receive the $11,346,000 $703, the towns must raise $686,108. So if you don't raise it, you will not receive the state dollars. It's within proportion. It's proportional.
I'm not a school budget expert. There's a spot in this budget to cut $441,000. If this isn't the spot, please tell me which one it is. Or
Okay.
maybe I need to go to a remedial course on school budgets to figure out where to go.
Hold on.
It's the next article. You're welcome.
I'll withdraw that motion.
All right, the one that made the second, are you willing to withdraw? It has been withdrawn. Any further discussion? All right, just recapping, the motion on the floor was for the $18,032,812.06 for the sum total, and the sum total of the three communities is $6,686,108.33. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Article 13. I will remind people this is a written ballot. It's required by law. To see what sum the RSU will raise and appropriate in additional local funds. Recommend $4,444,259, which exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by $4,444,259. Motion, please.
So Randy, sorry.
Excuse me. I forgot there's more to read, I'm sorry. The school board recommends $4,444,259, which exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by $4,444,259 due to inequities in the EPS funding formula, including but not limited to the regional labor market, adjustment factor, student-teacher ratios, extra and co-curricular programs, and administrative costs.
We're just discussing that there will need to be a motion because of the additional dollars added to the budget.
Right. There was a
So
larger
Nicole-
there was a expenditure amount, but again, we don't have a motion on the floor yet, so I will recognize Mr. Gayton. I will recognize Mr. Gayton for the purpose of making a motion.
$4,572,009.97.
Can you repeat that?
$4,572,097.
097 and no cents?
No cents.
All right, is there a second? It has been seconded. I'll repeat the number. The main motion on Article 13 is $4,572,097. It has been seconded and is now open for discussion.
I propose to amend the amount to $4 million. Excuse me. Yeah, $4 million.
We have an amendment that is being proposed in the amount of $4 million. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Questions or discussion? Please come to the microphone.
the reason that I seconded that motion may not be understood by all, but it happens to be the formula that the school board uses to arrive at this number. I find that formula disturbing at best because it doesn't really take into consideration. They use the state's formula, not the number of students that we're educating as a whole per town, but what the number of the tax that we're achieving through this number raises the taxes in the town of Litchfield by over 8%. Yes, I understand that your budget has gone up by 3.41%, maybe more. But with your formula, you have increased Litchfield's taxes by over 8%. I find that unacceptable at best.
Right. Any further discussion?
Hi, Christine Garrett Sabatis. I just want to point out that a reduction here does not mean that your particular least favorite budget item gets cut. The cut comes from what the school board decides. Is that correct?
Direct your comments to the chair, please.
My apologies. So I just want to remind everyone that that is the case, that we have already voted on the budgeted amounts for the various line items, and that if we then cut this line item or do not accept the amended, or well, I guess the original motion, that money is going to have to come from somewhere. And we've already known that that money generally comes from facilities and maintenance.
Thank you. I will just remind members that yes, we have voted on articles up through this point, and that allows the RSU to expend up to that amount. Just wanted to clarify that if this number is modified, the board would have the decision as to where reductions or improvements in the budget would go. Mr. Parker. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to clarify one comment about that. There's a $400,000. There seems to be confusion raised around the debt service. So it was noted because the debt service is not on our state funds, and it's a reduction on the expenditure lines. So last year's budget, the year before that, we had the amount of the payment for debt service in our budget. And yes, on the revenue side with the state funds, it's included in that, although proportionally it still goes through the how much is the local required in the state dollars. And I know that sounds confusing to a degree, but it's not like, well, you don't have that debt service. That's why that article is at 0, because we aren't going to be asking for dollars towards that. Just want clarification.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. English.
So, Mr. Moderator, then I would ask the question, in last year's budget, did that $443,000 have to be raised by the 3 towns of the RSU, or did it come 100% from state funding because it was a state-funded construction project, and it appeared on the ED 279, which I looked at today?
Right, it comes to the total calculation for Sabatis. So when you see Sabatis's total amount, then it goes through the proportion of what Sabatis pays for. So first they deduct the required local and then the state dollars.
Right, but Sabatis didn't have to raise that money because it was state funded. The state gave us the money on behalf of Sabatis to pay the debt service. That's the way it's worked for a long, long time. I believe that.
It's not 100%. It's based on the proportion of which you pay for your state and local.
I looked at the ED 279 today, Mr. Moderator, and the amount that was in the ED 279 matched exactly 100% of what the debt service
Yes.
was last year. And that money flowed right through the formula to the Sabatis line because it was Sabatis debt.
Yeah. That is correct.
So,
Please don't interrupt.
Yeah, sorry.
so the money that the RSU paid for in last year's budget did not really include debt service because the RSU only passed money through. So taking that debt service money out and make it look as if that's a $443,000 savings is incorrect because we didn't spend it in the first place. It was passed through. So all the other lines and all the other articles, those numbers, we actually raised that money, not offset by state funding. So that 443,000, whatever it was, 443,656, was in fact not assessed to the individual taxpayers. It was paid by the state and shouldn't really be included in our numbers. We've done this before. Next year we will just look at it. It just gets rolled in. You just automatically bumped up the budget $443,000, making it look as if you didn't. But in fact, the local people have to go and now pay that because you rolled it into the budget.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? All right. Seeing none? What color ballot? Orange. We will be, so we'll be voting on the amendment first. The amended amount is $4 million even. All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no on your secret ballot. I will now declare the ballot box opened. If you need assistance with voting, please seek a clerk or the moderator. Does anybody need assistance with voting? Once again, does anybody need assistance with voting? Has everybody voted who wishes? That's why I said. I'm not rushing you. Has everyone voted who wishes? Seeing nobody running to the box, I'll declare the ballot box closed and we'll begin counting. We have a total of 38 voters present. There was 14 yes, 22 no, for a total of 36. The amendment fails. So we'll move back to the main motion, which was $4,572,097. Further discussion. Seeing none, I guess we're ready to vote. What color, Sharon? Pink. We'll be voting with a pink ballot. This is the main motion for additional local, once again, $4,572,097. This is a yes, no ballot. Does anybody need assistance with voting? Has everyone voted who wishes? I will declare the ballot box closed and we'll begin counting. All right, can I have your attention, please? Article 13. There's still a total of 38 voters that have checked in, 22 yes, 8 no, a total of 30 ballots cast. The motion carries. Article 14. To see what sum the RSU will authorize the school board to expend for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2026, from the RSU's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, local funds for non-state funded school construction debt service, additional local funds for school purposes under Maine Revised Statutes Title 20A, Section 15690, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts for support of schools. School Board recommends $23,310,071. Motion, please.
Mr. Moderator. Oh, I think I have one. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Board of Directors would like to amend their recommendation.
We're not at the amendment stage, so if you
Okay.
have a main motion you'd like to make, that's where we're at.
Am I moving the amount?
You're moving an amount.
$23,437,909.00.
Is there a second? It's been seconded. I'll repeat the number in case anybody didn't hear it. The motion is $23,437,909. Any discussion? This is the sum total of what was just approved. Do you want to come to the mic? Yeah, this is the sum total of what just occurred. Any questions or discussion? All right, now this one does require me to do a physical count, so seeing no further discussion, I will call for the vote and ask you to please leave your cards up so I can do a count. All those in favor? Those opposed? I counted 25 in the affirmative, 6 in the negative. The motion carries. Article 15, to see if the RSU will raise and appropriate $132,530 for the school nutrition program with authorization to expend any additional, incidental, or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and for the well-being of the school nutrition program. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Yes.
Could someone, Mr. Moderator, address why we have this warrant article and what, if this money was covered by other funds previously?
All right. The member has posed a question to anybody who may be able to answer.
Sure, so this represents the amount of money that we look for from the 3 towns to fund the school nutrition program. So in previous years, this was funded, or the amount we collected from the towns was funded under Article 11, all other expenditures. But the food nutrition expenses sat outside in its own fund, and the guidance that we've received from the DOE in the last couple of years is that the revenue should sit with the expenses own fund. And so we keep it outside of the general fund and in its own school nutrition fund.
Thank you. Follow-up question?
Sure, go ahead.
This amount is included in the amount that we just voted on?
No.
No, the amount that you are looking at now sits in a separate fund exclusively for school nutrition. So that fund includes the revenue that we receive from state dollars to fund that program, and the expenses to fund that school nutrition program. But what you just voted on was the general fund.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Jim Waterman, Sabatis. On page 4, it addresses this, and if you take the local allocation for the 3 towns, that equals the 132,530. Are you saying that we are going to get the 750,000 from the state, the 40,000 from the grant revenue, the 50,000 from daily school lunch sales, and take 50,000 from the fund balance, and the total actual budget is $1,022,529?
That's correct. The revenue lines that you're seeing below the allocations for each of the towns are projected or anticipated revenue.
And with all the controversy over grants and funding, you are expecting the state subsidy of $750,000?
Yes.
So in effect, we're paying $132,530 to get $1,022,529 worth of school lunch?
That's one way to look at it.
Any further questions or discussion regarding the school nutrition program? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 16, to see if the RSU will appropriate $89,435 for adult education and raise $38,858 as the local share, with authorization to expend any additional, incidental, or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and well-being of the adult education program. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 17. In addition to the amounts approved in the preceding articles, shall the school board be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from the federal or state grant or program or other sources during the fiscal year for school and other program purposes, provided that such grants, programs, or other sources do not require the expenditure of funds not previously appropriated. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion carries. Article 18. Shall the school board be authorized to establish a capital reserve fund for the purpose of maintaining school facilities and acquiring capital equipment, to transfer up to $150,000 from available capital fund balances at the end of the 2024-2025 fiscal year to the capital reserve fund, and to expend from the capital reserve fund in the discretion of the school board during the upcoming fiscal year. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Mr. English first.
An interesting article. I think it's 281498 or something like that, talks about capital funds. Typically, you establish a capital fund, you pay into it over a period of time, and then when you want to expend it, you ask for the expenditure specific purposes for it at a budget meeting, or the school board has special meetings, publicized, and public hearings are held, and then the school board can expend it. You've rolled that process all into one motion. So you're going to use funds that are available at the end of this school year, according to this. We don't know what that is until it's audited. Right? So these aren't funds that are already available, as you said earlier, because you're going to use balance at the end of the 24-25 school year. And then you're going to allow the board to expend this money during this fiscal year. So it's not really a capital reserve fund. It's a slush money fund that you're putting $150,000 in that you're going to spend in this upcoming fiscal year. So instead of sticking it in the facilities and maintenance line where it belonged, you stuck it out here. That's whether that was your intent or not, that is what happened. So I have no problem with the monies. What my problem is when we try and not be transparent. And I think that this school board this year has not been transparent on the budget articles and has moved some money around and made things look better than they actually are. So we have raised the facility and maintenance line, thank you, for an amendment that was made. I would propose voting no on this one because it's not really a capital reserve fund as it's made out to be. It's just a fund that you're going to spend this year based upon fund balance that's available at the end of this school year, which isn't audited yet. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if it was a question, but there might have been a question in there. Is there anything you wanted to respond?
No, I have presentation before the article that might answer some questions for folks. Because a
All right.
gentleman asked me what was the plan for Libby Tozier. That's the moment. So we're going to, if I may.
Sure.
The teacher in me I stand, sorry. This, the teacher in me. So a big discussion with the board, to be as transparent as possible, is to make sure you understood what we were using that capital improvement fund for, which is, we looked at Libby Tozier, and yes, the board is going to be discussing a long-term plan for our buildings, right, our facilities. But in the short term, we've got to take care of some things at Libby Tozier, and so the removal and replacement of carpets will be done in June. So we're looking at our maintenance and facility budget, looking at what do we have available, can we do some of this work now, and so this is being done as they move classrooms around and move grade 1 into Libby Tozier, okay? So then other things, we have the windows and sills, the building envelope. Those are the two items, and you'll see in the next slide, the board took a vote so that you all knew that it was approved by the board that that $150,000 would go towards these two items. And then long-term, things we're looking at will need to be funded, and how will those be funded is the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, so the air quality and roof repairs, which are big items. And so there's school revolving loans, which you'll hear us say SRRF grants. And so we are already in discussion with Harriman Architect on the cost to put our applications together for those funds. We did put an application 2 years ago for HVAC that was not approved at the time, but we had ADA compliance approved. So there is work going to be done at Libby Tozier around ADA compliance using those funds. And so grants will be put in to help support HVAC and roof repairs, and it's a grant that school departments apply for and to receive support. So we're going to work on putting applications together on that. And then, as many of you know, because a lot of familiar faces, we did put in a major capital construction grant in last year. This is every 8 or so years, there's a big list. So districts that need major construction, new buildings or renovations, they put in an application, and then the state comes and goes through those facilities, they score them, and then the list comes out. And so you hope you're in the top 10 or top 8, because those usually you don't get farther than that. Because there's only limited funds. And you've probably been hearing a lot in Augusta, I'm sure you have, on how are we going to fund to have more money available to help our schools, because there's over 100 applications that went in for these dollars. But we have that application in for Libby Tozier. We will know in August where we land on that list. But to be proactive, to see what funding we could receive, that went in as well. And then the board will have to have a discussion for some of these big items is do we maybe do a bond payment, those type of things. So in order to do these two items, we're asking for a capital improvement fund. And the question is written, you know, we consult with our attorneys. This year, if you want to go to the next slide, Samantha. So this year, we have to establish the fund. So next year, when you come, that wording will not be in this question. This is the year that you're creating it. Then each year, you will vote after the board votes on how much money will be allocated to the fund. And then you give permission for expending it. So these two will always be there. This year, you're establishing the fund because we don't have one. Then I added here, because I wanted you to know that the board approved the Libby Tozier building envelope and window sills replacement projects to be funded by the Capital Improvement Fund if Article 18 is approved at the public budget meeting. So that was the motion of which the board approved. So yes, there were different ways of looking at it, and you can review our discussion. There was a lot of discussion on how to fund that. So we're taking tax dollars already collected to put it towards this project.
Thank you. Mr. Wood first, then Mr. Waterman, and then Mr. Parker.
I have a couple of questions. Tom Wood, Litchfield. This mentions, sit, boo-boo. Available fund balances at the end of 24-25. Is there an estimated amount that could be shared with us tonight as to what that balance might be?
So the end of the year balance also includes our current balance, so we can give you what we have for information around our fund balance.
I mean, I don't have a great number for you, Mr. Wood. I'm in the middle of doing end of year projections right now, so I haven't arrived at that number, but I can tell you that we came in with a audited fund balance of just about 1.3 million entering this year, and I feel like we've been fiscally conservative, recognizing you know, the changes that we face with the SPS closure after the April vote. So I feel like we'll be positioned to have the monies that we've put forward for recommendation here.
Thank you.
Did you have a follow-up?
A follow-up is that the way this is worded, the superintendent listed three things that this bill does, this article does. One is it establishes the reserve fund. Okay, but if you establish it and then spend it out in the first year, you don't really have a fund, you just have a piece of paper. So my motion would be to amend Article 18 to read the transfer of up to $150,000 from available fund balances at the end of 24-25, and to permit at the discretion of the school board during the upcoming fiscal year $149,000, leaving a fund balance that's a real reserve in a capital reserve fund of $1,000. So not only do you create it, you've done something to establish it over time. That's my motion.
Is there a second to that amendment? It has been seconded. Was there clarification? Did you understand the amendment? Okay. All right, we're still in discussion. I think Mr. Waterman was next.
Yes, procedurally, is this a yes or no question? And the number stays at 150? Or are we able to do modifications to the number, the way it's worded?
I think it was I took it as as an amendable item, but I'll ask the superintendent if they had a legal opinion that might differ.
Well, the board did 150,000, which is more than what's anticipated for the two projects. So we do think there will be money after we spend for the two projects, because we have to go out to bid, obviously. So you're right. I mean, that motion is directing the board not to spend the 150, but to spend 149,000.
Right, his amendment, and I'm not
Right.
talking about the amendment.
Exactly. Yeah.
As, the first sentence says, shall the board be authorized? So
Right.
that sounds like yes or no to me.
It is yes or no. Mhm.
So, back on facilities and maintenance, we increased it by the 127,837. So the way your presentation was, if this gets turned down, Article 18, and you don't get the 150 or 149 as it's amended, is that still capable of being spent on the same project with the extra 127,837.99?
There's a lot of
So my question for clarity is, facilities and maintenance got increased. Can you take money from facilities and maintenance to accomplish the same thing?
Yeah, if the budget passes and the board, and we decide to, we have the money, right. It's not, if we looked at how much, you want to go back to how much the projects are anticipated. I mean, we don't know how much the project exactly will be. So to say the 129 is going to cover that, or 127,000 that was put in, where it's short what we're projecting the projects will cost based on what we've gotten for quotes.
But you can use money from facilities and maintenance for that project.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Mr.
So
Baker.
I think can I add, that number 150,000, I think you were asking yes or no. It is a yes or no to the question.
Are you all set? Are you all set?
We'll get back to the amendment in just a second. Go ahead, Mr. Parker.
So first, I would like to ask the question whether or not, maybe it's a point of order, I don't know. But I would like to ask the question whether or not, because that $150,000 is in the body of the article and not recommended by the school board, whether or not that number can actually be changed. I don't believe it can. I think that is an up or down vote, and you have to vote on the $150,000. Secondly, if you'll indulge me,
Go ahead.
it's perfectly within your right to find out what your actual we call it unexpended fund balance in the town of Litchfield. You can call it whatever you want to. But you can wait until you find out what that number actually is. Then you can call an emergency town meeting, because that's what this is, of the three towns. You are your own government. You take direction from no single town. So you can call an emergency town meeting, put a number in there that you actually have funds to supply this with, and then create this account. But I would suggest that you take that you vote this down, and then amend it so that it says create a capital reserve account. Then you can fund it at a special or an emergency meeting of the three towns. And I'm sure that it'll work, but that's the right way to go about it. This is not. Thank you.
All right. Tom, Mr. Wood.
If it's the opinion of the moderator and the board that my motion is procedurally incorrect, I'll withdraw it.
I would ask, I would defer the question to the superintendent, who may have more information on the wording of the article, because I'm sure it was drafted with a legal opinion. Could you comment on that? And if you believe that his additional language might complicate things or be procedurally inappropriate?
If he's willing to withdraw, I think we would agree. That.
I don't
We
think
do
that-
agree. we do agree that the withdrawal helps. This was crafted by the attorney on how it needed to be written.
I would ask the person who proposed the amendment to come to the mic and indicate if it's are you withdrawing? Or do I need to seek further clarification?
That was a non-answer, but I withdraw the motion.
All right, the person that made the second, also withdraw? Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Okay.
Doug Bumpus, Litchfield. This is mostly in response to transparency. We have videotaped board meetings at least twice a month, right? This particular amendment was brought up for at least 2 of those, and we had a lot of discussion regarding
please direct your
regarding
comments
that.
to the moderator.
I know.
Thank you.
Regarding the wording and the voting and all of that. And most of it seems that we kind of agreed to have the voters agree to vote on this. We agreed to present it so that the voters can then choose whether or not they want it. It wasn't so much of a unanimous kind of thing. But I think that it would be important to kind of review some of these or participate or attend some of the previous meetings, board meetings, because it seems a constant theme is that a lot of concerns that come up usually are brought up and are addressed in the board meetings. And transparency is something that I think that we're actually really trying to push towards. And I feel like, especially with Warrant Article 18, it would have really been appreciated if people had gone through and at least watched the previous 2 board meetings to see how the board members individually felt about this particular warrant article and some of the concerns, some of the explanations that were brought up as far as how we arrived at this and how it was explained to us as well. I think it might help with a general discussion here. Another, in addition, very related, is that this is kind of the budget is a group project. So we're kind of presenting the final group project. Each individual board meeting that is available on YouTube shows each individual board member's participation in crafting the group project. And there's been a lot of the board this and the board that without really, I feel like, taking into account that each individual board member is bringing, is in their own way addressing concerns that are being brought up. And I think it's very important for the record to say that we're trying to be transparent, and we're all at one point or another trying to actually address issues that seem to come up only at the final project presentation meeting, which is this tonight. So it's important for me to say that before we close. So
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 18? Mr. English.
Just briefly, so for as far back as I can remember, and probably going back much farther than that, our fund balance has always been used to offset the taxes to the community in the following year. That's why we hadn't reserved capital funds, so that we could take that money that we paid more than what we needed to fund education, and take that money and get it back to us in a reduction in our taxes the following year. So we still maintain, and we don't, not while I was on the board or anybody, 100%, although we did when we first formed the RSU, we gave it all back, and then we got nailed by the auditors. So then we had to start making sure we kept some to the side. But any money that we stick aside from here is less money that we'll have to put into the funding formula to reduce taxes in the following year's budget. So I ask people to just keep that in mind. We either give them money that we've already spent, or we give them money in the year in which they need it, and include it in the physical, in the maintenance line of the budget. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion?
Thank you, school board, for presenting. We should be here for the meetings or review the meetings that are presented online. I'm doing the best I can to catch up. I just got here not too long ago. I wanted to present the fact that the Article 18 I understand it's a lot of money, and it seems like something separate. It kind of is something separate. We should be understanding that maintenance is maintenance. Maintenance is done every day, every week, every month, every year. Capital gains is something. Windows aren't replaced every day, every week, every month, or every year. It's one of those things we do once in a while, and when they need to be done. We have half of Sabattis, or a large amount of Sabattis students and teachers and staff that are going to be put into the Libby Tozier School, and that school is in rough shape. So I'm thinking that this. I'm hoping the wording is done correctly, that this money is spent for these items that are needed once in a while. A roof isn't done frequently. It's done hopefully every 25 years if you have a good one, if you spend the money to do it right. I just want people to just take a breath. This Article 18, if it's made, it'll turn around. We can turn around and vote just like we did on, correct me if I'm wrong, Article 9 and 10. They both are $0, and we all agreed, yep, we're not going to use that article this time. That Article 18 is for things that are going to happen to the buildings. The buildings are not going to last forever. They do get used, and everybody take a breath on this. And let's just really think about what we're trying to save a building for our children, and we've done everything else we can. And this is pretty much a shoestring of a budget. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Yes.
Elton Wade, Litchfield. I support the idea of a capital reserve fund account. I do not think the wording, as it's written here, provides the result, because you're going to, in the end, hopefully, continue to add money to this. So if you're planning on doing this, it should be worded so that you are establishing the capital reserve account with X number of dollars for X number of jobs, or for X job, for X capital improvement. You can itemize that, and each year, as you have a project to do, you establish what you're going to do then. You don't spend the money now. You're planning for the future.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? There's a motion to move the previous question, which will end debate. That does require a 2/3 majority of those present. All those in favor of ending discussion at this time, please raise your cards. Those opposed? That motion carries. The motion on the floor was Article 18 as written and read. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? I'm sorry, I didn't do a good count on that, so let's do that one again. All those in favor of Article 18, please raise your paddles and keep them held. right, and those opposed? All right, I counted 22 in the affirmative, 9 in the negative. The motion carries. All right, this concludes the warrant articles and is step one of a two-step process. Before we adjourn, I'll remind people that Election Day is June 10th, 2025 at your local polling location. In Litchfield, the polls are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Sportsman's Club. Sabattis at the town office from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Wales from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Having no further business to come before this meeting, is there a motion to adjourn? It's been moved, seconded. All those in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. School board, stay. Teresa, we have to sign if you were trying to run away.